Chapter 1. The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Sterling Tower had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the city like a kingdom. Noah had designed it that way on purpose. He liked being able to see everything from up high. It made the world feel manageable. It made him feel manageable. "The Harlow deal is done," said his VP of Acquisitions, Mia-chan, setting a folder in front of him. "Signed this morning. The waterfront development is officially ours." "Good." Noah reached for his coffee without looking up from the contract in his hands. "What about the Eastgate permits?" "Still pending. City Council is dragging their feet. But nothing we can't." His phone buzzed, then buzzed again. Then his assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Mr. Sterling? I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here who doesn't have an appointment. He says, I don't take unscheduled. He says to tell you that you still owe him a chess rematch from 2013. The room went very quiet. Mia looked at Noah. Noah had gone completely still, coffee cup halfway to his mouth, eyes fixed on nothing. He set the cup down slowly. "Precisely. Send him in," he said. His voice came out perfectly even. He was proud of that. The boardroom doors opened. Damien Voss walked in like he owned the building, which Noah would later reflect was simply how Damien walked into every room he entered. Tall, dark-suited, gray eyes sweeping the space with the calm assessment of someone cataloging everything of value. He looked exactly like he had at 18, except more so. More composed. More dangerous. More everything. He stopped at the head of the table, Noah's end of the table, and looked at Noah with a smile that hadn't changed in 11 years. "Hello, Sterling," he said. "You redecorated." "Get out of my building," Noah said pleasantly. Damien pulled out a chair. Not just any chair, but the one directly beside Noah's, and sat down with the unhurried ease of a man who had never been told no in his life. "I'll leave right after we talk. We have nothing to talk about." "The Eastgate permits," Damien said. Noah's jaw tightened. Damien watched it happen with quiet satisfaction. "The city council members who are stalling your project," he continued, folding his hands on the table. "3 of them are in debt to people who are in debt to me. I can have those permits approved by Friday. I don't need your help. You've been waiting 6 months. I can wait 6 more. Damien tilted his head. The light caught his eyes and made them silver. "Can you? Because I also know about the Linwood Group and what they're planning to do to your Harlow deal." The silence that followed was the kind that had weight. Noah looked at him for a long moment, the look he gave adversaries across negotiating tables, the look that made grown men uncomfortable. Damien received it the way he received everything. Without flinching, with something that looked almost like pleasure. "Get out," Noah said, quieter this time, which was worse. Damien stood. He buttoned his jacket with the methodical calm of someone who knew they'd already won the conversation. At the door, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. "You're going to call me," he said. "Not a threat. Just a fact, offered the way weather forecasts are offered. When you're ready, call me." He reached into his breast pocket and set a matte black card on the edge of the table. "My personal number. It hasn't changed." He left. The doors closed behind him. Mia turned slowly from where she'd been frozen against the wall. "Who?" she said carefully. "Was that?" Noah stared at the black card on the table. "Nobody," he said. "Old school acquaintance." He did not touch the card. He also did not throw it away. He called on Thursday. He told himself it was a business decision. It was absolutely a business decision. It had nothing to do with the fact that Damien had looked at him across that boardroom like no time had passed at all. "I knew you'd call Thursday," Damien said instead of hello. "Don't," Noah said. "The permits will be done by tomorrow morning." A pause, and Noah could hear the quietness of wherever Damien was. The controlled, expensive silence of someone whose spaces matched his personality perfectly. "Dinner. Tomorrow night. We discuss the Linwood situation. I don't do dinner with criminals. You do dinner with city councilors, and I promise you they're worse." Another pause. "Asteria Nera. 8 o'clock. I'll have them hold the private room. I haven't said yes. I know, Damien said. But you will. He hung up. Noah stared at his phone for a very long time. Then he texted his assistant to clear his Friday evening. Chapter 2. Osteria Nera was the kind of restaurant that didn't have a sign outside. You either knew where it was or you didn't. Noah knew he'd closed 2 deals there, but he'd never been in the private room before. It was smaller than he expected. 1 table, 2 chairs, candlelight, a wine already open and breathing. Damien was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled to the elbow in a way that looked deliberate while managing to look effortless. He stood when Noah entered. "You're 3 minutes early," he said. "I'm always early." Noah sat across from him. "It's not a compliment to you." Damien sat back down and poured Noah's wine without asking. "The permits cleared at 9 this morning. Your project is back on track. What do you want in return?" "Nothing right now." Noah looked up from the glass. "That's not how you operate." "How would you know how I operate?" "Everyone knows how you operate, Voss." Damien smiled. That slow, controlled thing that never quite reached his eyes but always reached somewhere in Noah's chest. "Everyone knows rumors," he said. "You've never been the type to trust rumors. I trust facts. And the fact is, you didn't come to my office after 11 years of nothing to do me a favor out of the goodness of your heart." "No," Damien agreed. "I came because of the Linwood Group." He slid a folder across the table. Noah opened it. Inside were documents, acquisition plans, shareholder records, correspondence, all clearly obtained through channels that didn't bear thinking about. "The Linwood Group is planning a hostile takeover of Sterling Enterprises," Damien said. "They've been quietly buying up your secondary shareholders for 8 months. They have enough for a play by Q2. Noah read. His face showed nothing. His hand, flat on the table, pressed down slightly harder than usual. "Why are you telling me this?" Damien looked at him steadily. "Because I find the idea of someone else dismantling what you built objectionable. That's sentimental for a man in your position. Perhaps." Damien lifted his wine glass. "Or perhaps I simply prefer my rivals intact. You're not interesting destroyed, Noah. You're interesting fighting." There it was. The thing Damien always did, the thing he'd done at 17 across chessboards and debate stages and track fields, turned everything into a game only he fully understood the rules of. Noah closed the folder. "What's your play here?" "A business arrangement. Temporary, formal, deniable if necessary." Damien set his glass down. "You're too exposed operating alone. The Linwood Group has backing you can't match through legitimate channels alone. I have resources that can neutralize them before they make their move. And in exchange? Access. 1 project of my choosing, routed through Sterling Enterprises as a legitimate investment vehicle. Clean money, clean records, no questions." Noah stared at him. "You want to launder." "I want a legitimate business partner for 1 specific venture," Damien said smoothly. "Everything above board. My lawyers against your lawyers. Contracts and clauses. I have no interest in compromising Sterling Enterprises. And I'm supposed to believe that. You're supposed to make a decision." Damien leaned forward slightly. The candlelight moved. His eyes were very steady. "I am offering you protection, information, and resources that no one else in this city can offer you. In exchange for 1 joint venture, legally structured, that benefits us both." He paused. "Or you can handle the Linwood Group alone and spend the next 6 months watching them pick apart everything you've spent 6 years building." The restaurant was quiet around them. Somewhere beyond the private room, the low murmur of other people's evenings continued. Noah thought about it longer than he wanted to, because it was actually infuriatingly a reasonable offer. Because Damien had always made reasonable offers while managing to make you feel like you were signing something in blood. 1 venture. Noah said. 1 venture. My lawyers review everything. Naturally. And if I find a single clause I don't like, the whole thing dissolves." "Agreed." Noah looked at him. Damien looked back. The same way he'd looked across chessboards at 17, patient, certain, like he already knew the ending and was simply enjoying the middle. "Fine," Noah said. Damien lifted his glass. "To old acquaintances." Noah lifted his own. To business. Their glasses met. In the candlelight, something shifted in Damien's expression. Too fast to catch. Gone before Noah could name it. He told himself it meant nothing. He'd been telling himself things meant nothing since he was 17 years old. He was getting less convincing. Chapter 3. 11 years earlier. Noah Sterling arrived at Blackwell Academy on a scholarship and with a suitcase that was nicer than anything else he owned. He had spent 3 weeks researching the dress code, the social hierarchy, the unspoken rules of a place built for people who had never needed to research anything. He was prepared. He was always prepared. Preparation was the only advantage he had over people who had everything else. What he was not prepared for was Damien Voss. He met him on the third day in the library, over a chessboard that Noah had sat down at alone. He was halfway through a solo problem when someone pulled out the chair across from him and sat down without asking. "You're the scholarship student," the boy said. He was a year older, a senior, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and gray eyes that assessed Noah with the calm efficiency of someone used to determining the worth of things quickly. "You're stating the obvious," Noah said, moving a piece. "I'm Damien Voss. I know who you are." Everyone knew who Damien Voss was. "Was there something you wanted?" Damien looked at the board. Then, without asking, he moved a piece. It was a good move. A very good move. Noah looked at it for a moment. "You play," he said. "I do everything," Damien said simply. It should have been insufferable. Somehow it was just true. And the thing about true things, Noah had always thought, was that you couldn't really argue with them. They played for 2 hours. Neither of them won. Noah called a draw at the point where he could see 5 moves ahead and none of them ended in his favor. Damien accepted the draw with a look that said he saw the same 5 moves and had simply been waiting to see what Noah would do. "Same time Thursday?" Damien said, standing. "I didn't agree to that." "No." Damien agreed and left. Noah was there on Thursday. Damien was already waiting. For 2 years, they were the thing that didn't have a name. Not friends. Their relationship had too much friction for friendship, too much competition, too many arguments that went on longer than they needed to because neither of them wanted to stop. Not enemies. Enemies didn't save each other seats in the library or share notes before exams or stand together on the roof in October when the sky turned the color of a bruise. They competed for everything. Top of the class. Debate championships. The attention of professors who handed out praise like it was rationed. They competed with the focus of people who had long since forgotten it was competition and just needed to be near each other. The other students whispered about it. Noah ignored the whispers. Damien seemed not to hear them at all. In the spring of their last shared year, Damien's graduation year, there was a night at the end of March. It was late. The library was empty except for them, which happened sometimes, because they were both the type who stayed until the lights were about to go out. Noah was working through a financial theory problem. Damien was reading something Noah couldn't see the title of. At some point, Damien set the book down and looked at him. Just looked. The way he sometimes did, long and level and without the usual layer of calculation between them. "What?" Noah said without looking up. "Nothing." A pause. "I'm going to miss this." Noah looked up then, because Damien didn't say things like that. Not out loud. Not without armor. Damien was looking at the table, one finger tracing the edge of it, slow and absent. "The chess," Noah said carefully. Damien's eyes came up to meet his. Something in them that Noah had never seen before, or had seen and refused to name, which was different. "Sure," Damien said quietly. "The chess." They looked at each other for a long moment in the empty library. The kind of moment that had a shape, a weight, a sound like something about to tip. Then Noah's phone buzzed. He looked down at it. His father, of course, always his father, calling at midnight about some business thing that couldn't wait. And when he looked back up, Damien had returned to his book. The moment passed. 3 weeks later, Damien graduated and left Blackwell. Noah stayed 1 more year, alone with something he'd never named, and then left too. Into a world that promptly fell apart when his father's company collapsed and left him with nothing but debt and his own 2 hands. He never called Damien. Not through any of it. He had been so angry about that, for such a long time. He was still angry about it now. He just wasn't always sure anymore who the anger was for. Chapter 4. Back in the present, the Linwood Group moved faster than expected. It started with a leak, internal financial documents from Sterling Enterprises, not many but enough, appearing in the right journalists' inboxes with the right framing to raise doubt. Is Sterling Enterprises as stable as its CEO claims? Sources suggest cracks beneath the surface. The articles were careful, legally untouchable, devastating. Noah's phone rang at 6 in the morning. Then again. Then Mia was at his apartment by 7 with printouts and the particular expression she wore when things were bad, but she was trying not to say so yet. "It's a coordinated media hit," she said. "Someone inside fed them information." "I know." Noah was already dressed, already coffee in hand, already thinking 3 steps ahead. Pull every non-disclosure agreement signed in the last 18 months. I want to know who had access to those documents. Noah. Also get legal on the phone. I want cease and desist letters drafted by noon. Noah, Mia said louder. This isn't just a leak. 3 of our secondary shareholders have already called. They're nervous. Noah set his coffee down. How nervous? Selling nervous. The silence lasted exactly 4 seconds. Then his phone rang. Unknown number, except he recognized it because some numbers you remember for 11 years without meaning to. He picked up. I already know, he said. I know you know, Damien said. He sounded perfectly awake for 6 in the morning. He probably never fully slept. The leak came from your head of investor relations. His name is Philip Green. He's been on Linwood's payroll for 4 months. Noah looked at Mia. Something cold moved through him, the specific chill of betrayal from someone trusted. You're certain? I'm always certain before I say anything. I want proof I can use legally. It will be on your desk by 9. And the shareholders? I'm already making calls. A pause, and something in Damien's voice shifted, barely perceptibly. Dropped half a register into something that wasn't quite business. I need you to trust me for the next 48 hours, Noah. I don't trust you. I know. Trust the arrangement, then. Trust the contracts your lawyer signed. Trust the fact that I have more to lose than you do if Sterling Enterprises goes under while we're partners. Noah closed his eyes for exactly 1 second, then opened them. 48 hours, he said. That's all I need. It was a masterclass in quiet violence. Noah never saw most of it directly. He caught glimpses. A shareholder who had been on the verge of selling suddenly calling back to say they were holding. The journalist who'd published the first article issuing a quiet correction 24 hours later. A senior Linwood board member photographed leaving what was clearly a very uncomfortable meeting with someone Noah's people couldn't identify. The documents on Philip Green arrived at Noah's desk at 8:47. They were thorough. They were clean. They were the kind of evidence that shouldn't have been obtainable through any legal means. And Noah decided not to think too hard about that. He fired Green in a meeting that lasted 4 minutes. Security escorted him from the building. Noah went back to his desk and worked for 6 more hours. At 9 p.m., Damien appeared at his office. Not the boardroom this time. Noah's actual office, with its view of the city at night and its desk covered in papers and its distinct absence of the careful staging Noah maintained everywhere else. He'd let the receptionist go home hours ago. He should have been surprised. He wasn't. Linwood is pulling back, Damien said. He didn't sit down. He stood in the middle of the room with his coat still on, which meant he didn't plan to stay long, which meant something. They'll make one more play in the next week. A shareholder vote challenge, probably. But I've already blocked their access to 3 of the 7 votes they'd need. It won't succeed. How did you block them? Damien looked at him steadily. Would you prefer not to know? A pause. Yes, Noah said honestly. Then don't ask. Damien looked around the office. At the papers, the cold half-cup of coffee, the jacket Noah had thrown over the back of his chair at some point. The general evidence of a man who worked too hard and rested too little. Something in his expression shifted, slow and private. Have you eaten? Noah blinked. What? Today. Have you eaten? He thought about it. Lunch. It's 9 p.m. I'm aware of the time. Damien looked at him for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call, said something brief that Noah didn't catch, and hung up. "Food in 20 minutes, he said. "I didn't ask." "No," Damien agreed. "You never ask." He finally took off his coat, set it on the chair in the corner, and sat across from Noah's desk with the ease of someone who'd decided to stay. "While we wait, walk me through your Q2 projections. I want to know where you're actually exposed versus where Linwood thinks you're exposed." Noah stared at him. Damien looked back with those steady, storm-colored eyes, and waited. Noah pulled out the Q2 folder. They worked until midnight. Food arrived. Something from a restaurant Noah recognized as one of the best in the city, 40 minutes after Damien's call. They ate at his desk without ceremony. Damien asked sharp, precise questions. Noah answered them and then started asking his own, because Damien's perspective on market pressure was, infuriatingly, sharper than anyone else he'd worked with. At midnight, Noah set down his pen and looked up. Damien was reading something on his phone. Just for a moment, unguarded, the composed public face relaxed into something more ordinary. Just a man reading his phone at midnight, in an office where he had no reason to be, who had spent the last 3 hours helping someone he owed nothing. Something shifted in Noah's chest. Something uncomfortable and familiar and 11 years old. "Why are you really doing this?" he asked. Damien looked up. "The joint venture." "Not the joint venture." Noah held his gaze. "The permits. The Linwood situation. Tonight." He paused. "You didn't have to do any of this. You could have let the Linwood Group move in, bought Sterling Enterprises for pennies afterward, and gotten everything you wanted with half the effort." The room was very quiet. Damien looked at him for a long moment. The phone in his hand went dark. "Some things," he said carefully and quietly, "are not about efficiency." Noah looked at him. Damien looked back. Neither of them said the thing that was underneath that. But it was there, the same way it had been there in a library at midnight 11 years ago, the same shape, the same weight. Noah looked away first. He always looked away first. "You should go," he said. "It's late." Damien stood, picked up his coat, paused at the door. "Noah," he said. "What?" "The Linwood vote. Friday. I'll need you in the meeting." "Fine." Another pause. Something almost said, "Get some sleep," Damien said instead, and left. Noah sat in his empty office for a long time, the city glowing 40 stories below, and thought about efficiency and the things that aren't about it. Chapter 5. The Friday vote went exactly as Damien said it would. The Linwood challenge failed by 3 votes. The room went quiet in the particular way rooms went quiet when powerful people lost, carefully, dangerously, and Noah sat at the far end of the table and felt the wind settle into him like something solid. Afterward, in the lobby, he found Damien waiting. "Satisfied?" Damien said. "Relieved," Noah said honestly. "There's a difference." Damien looked at him with something that could have been respect if it had been on anyone else's face. "Come for a drink. We should talk about the joint venture timeline. Business at a bar. I have a roof. Better than a bar." The roof of the Voss building was not what Noah expected. He'd expected sleek and cold. All the edges Damien showed the world. Instead it was quiet and open, with low furniture and plants that looked actually cared for and a view of the city that rivaled his own. Damien poured whiskey without asking, the good kind, the kind that didn't need anything added to it. He handed a glass to Noah and sat in the chair across from him, and for a while they just looked at the city. "I hated you," Noah said eventually, because the whiskey was good and he was tired and 11 years was a long time to carry something unsaid. "At Blackwell. For the first month, I genuinely hated you." "I know," Damien said. "You made it very clear. You made it worse. You never let me win. You never needed me to let you win. That was the point." Noah turned to look at him. "Was it a game to you? Back then?" Damien was quiet for a moment. He turned his glass in his hands, a rare gesture, something not quite controlled. "In the beginning," he said, "you interested me. You were better than everyone else and you knew it, but you were angry about it instead of comfortable, and I found that," he paused, chose the word carefully, "compelling. Compelling. And then it stopped being a game." Damien said, simply, without dressing it up. Noah looked at him for a long time. You left, Noah said. Graduated and left and didn't. He stopped. You didn't reach out either. You were Damien Voss. You were going to run your family's empire. I was a scholarship student about to inherit a failing company. Noah's voice was flat, but something underneath it wasn't. What exactly was I supposed to reach out about? Me, Damien said quietly. You could have reached out about me. Not the names or the money. He stopped. Just me. The city hummed below them. Somewhere a siren. Somewhere music, the million-point light of a million lives. You watched my career, Noah said. It wasn't a question. He'd known for weeks. From things Damien knew that he shouldn't have known. From the precision of his timing. When I came back to the city, you tracked it. Yes. That's... He searched for the word. Unsettling. Probably. Damien met his eyes. I watched you rebuild everything from nothing. I watched you refuse help from every person who offered it. I watched you be so... Something moved across his face, restrained and raw at the same time. So exhaustingly, magnificently stubborn about doing it alone. He paused. It was very difficult not to intervene sooner. And the Linwood situation gave you an excuse. The Linwood situation gave me a reason. There's a difference. Damien set his glass down. I was going to step in regardless. I had 3 separate entry points ready. Linwood just moved first. Noah stared at him. You had 3 entry points ready. I prefer to be prepared. That is the most insane thing anyone has ever said to me. You're welcome, Damien said, with perfect composure. Noah laughed. Unexpected, genuine, surprised out of him. And Damien's expression did the thing it sometimes did. That fractional shift into something unguarded, like a curtain moving in a window. You're impossible, Noah said, but the edge was gone out of it. You've said that before. It's been true every time. They looked at each other. The night air moved between them, warm for the season, carrying the sound of the city below. The joint venture, Noah said, because he needed to say something practical before he said something else entirely. What's the project? Damien's eyes didn't move from his face. A hotel development. Midtown. I have the land, you have the construction and design infrastructure. Clean financials on both sides. 2-year project. 2 years. Yes. 2 years. Working alongside Damien Voss for 2 years with all the proximity that implied. Noah should have called it a conflict of interest. He should have renegotiated the scope. He should have said something sensible. Send the proposal to my lawyers Monday, he said. Damien's mouth curved. Slow, private, just enough. Already done, he said. I sent it Thursday. Of course he had. Of course. Noah shook his head, and finished his whiskey, and looked out at the city they both owned pieces of, and didn't say any of the things he wasn't ready to say yet. But he stayed until 1 in the morning, and Damien never asked him to leave. Chapter 6. The joint venture made them, professionally, inseparable. Meetings twice a week, sometimes at Sterling Tower, sometimes at Voss headquarters, a building that was all dark glass and silence and the particular energy of a place where powerful decisions were made quietly. Their lawyers had produced a contract that ran to 60 pages and contained enough mutual protection clauses to guarantee both parties' interests were hermetically sealed. What the contract could not protect against was Thursday evenings. It had started practically, they needed to review weekly progress, and Thursday evenings worked for both schedules. But somewhere in the 3rd week, the project binders had moved to the side table and they were talking about other things. Markets, philosophy, a book Damien had read that had apparently made him unreasonably angry about one specific chapter, a deal Noah had closed in his 2nd year of rebuilding that he'd never told anyone the full story of. Damien listened the way he did everything, with complete, unhurried attention. He never offered empty affirmations. He asked questions that showed he'd heard every word. When he disagreed, he said so, clearly and without cruelty, and then listened to Noah's counterargument with the same attention. Noah had never had someone disagree with him so well. By the 5th Thursday, they were having dinner before the meetings. By the 7th Thursday, Noah arrived and found the table already set and something from his favorite restaurant. the one he'd never mentioned because he'd never had occasion to mention it, already there. He stopped in the doorway. Damien was pouring water. Back to the door, jacket already off. "How did you know that was my favorite?" Noah said. Damien turned. His expression was completely composed. "Lucky guess." "You don't guess." A pause. "No," Damien agreed. "I don't." Noah set his bag down slowly and sat at the table. He looked at the food, then at Damien settling across from him, then at the particular quality of the Thursday evening light in this room. "Damien," he said. What is this?" Damien looked up. His eyes were very steady. "What do you think it is?" "I think—" Noah stopped. Started again. "I think that you have done every impossible thing you said you'd do since the day you walked into my boardroom. I think you know my favorite restaurant and you had my Thursday evening schedule memorized within a week. I think you spent 11 years. His voice got quieter. "Watching my career. And I think that if I asked you why, the answer would be something you'd find 17 ways to say without saying it directly." Damien was quiet for a long moment. "Probably," he said. "I'm better at actions than words. You know that." "I know that." Noah looked at him. "But I'm asking for words. Just this once." Outside the windows the city moved and shifted and hummed with its million lives. The room was still. Damien set down his glass. He looked at Noah, really looked the way he had across a chessboard at 17, reading and being read. "I have been interested in you," he said slowly, "since the day you sat down at that chessboard without asking if the seat was taken, because you were the only person at that school who looked at me and didn't see the name. You saw the move. You played back." A pause. "I have been thinking about you with varying degrees of rationality for 11 years. I had 3 entry points ready before the Linwood situation because I'd been watching for an excuse to—" He stopped. "To come back. Into your orbit. Whatever shape that could take." He held Noah's gaze. "That's the direct version. You asked for it." The silence after that had weight and shape and the particular quality of something that had been held a long time finally being put down. Noah looked at him. His chest was doing the unreasonable thing. The thing it had been doing since the boardroom, since Osteria Nera, since the roof, since every Thursday evening. The thing he'd been trying to label as business instinct or residual rivalry or anything other than what it was. "I have been," Noah said carefully, "angry at you for 11 years for leaving without—" He stopped. "Without finishing something. I didn't know there was something to finish." "Yes, you did." A pause. "Yes," Damien said quietly. "I did. And you left anyway. You didn't ask me to stay." Noah looked at the table. "You wouldn't have stayed just because I asked." "I would have," Damien said. Very quietly, very certain. "I would have, Noah. If you'd said anything. I would have found a reason." The thing about true things was that you couldn't argue with them. Noah sat with that for a long moment. 11 years of distance and pride and never asking and building things alone and being magnificently stubborn about it. Stacked up against this man across the table who had apparently been watching his back the entire time. "This is an incredibly complicated situation," Noah said. "Yes. We have a 60-page contract between us. You're the most dangerous man in the city. Third most, technically," Damien said, and something in his expression was very close to warm. "But I appreciate the ranking. And you want to—" Noah gestured between them. "I want to stop pretending Thursday evenings are about the project," Damien said. "I want to stop finding professional reasons to be in the same room as you. I want—" He paused, chose the word. "Honesty. Between us. Whatever shape that takes." Noah looked at him for a long time. Then, because he was tired of being afraid of the thing he'd wanted since he was 17 years old, he said, "Thursday evenings aren't about the project." Damien's eyes changed. Just slightly. Just enough. Like a lock turning. "No," he said. "They're not." They stayed at the table for 3 more hours. They talked about everything that wasn't the project. And at the door, when Noah was leaving, Damien said his name in the way he had sometimes at Blackwell, low and without the professional layer, and Noah turned. Damien crossed the distance between them and kissed him. Careful and certain and unhurried, like every deliberate thing he'd ever done. Noah's hand came up to his jacket lapel without deciding to. It lasted exactly long enough to mean everything. When they pulled back, Noah looked at him in the hallway light. "You could have done that 11 years ago," he said. "You would have run," Damien said. A pause. "Probably," Noah admitted. Damien's mouth curved. "Are you going to run now?" Noah looked at him, the most dangerous man in the city, in his dark hallway, with that careful warm smile that he gave no one else. "No," Noah said. "I've done enough of that." Chapter 7. It wasn't simple. Nothing with them had ever been simple, and love, if that's what it was becoming, was not going to change that. It was two men with separate empires. One legal, one not. One who fixed problems with contracts and one who fixed them with phone calls that couldn't be traced. Their worlds didn't fully overlap and they both preferred it that way. The joint venture was the bridge, and even that required careful management. It was also the best thing in Noah's life, which he found both wonderful and annoying. Damien was not a demonstrative man in public. What he was, privately, was attentive in ways that accumulated: messages at 6 in the morning with a piece of market information Noah would need, a solved problem waiting for him before he knew the problem existed, a reservation at the right place on a hard day Noah hadn't mentioned was hard. He showed up, consistently, reliably, and always slightly before he was needed. Noah, for his part, learned to receive. Turned out that was the harder skill. "You're doing it again," Damien said one evening, watching Noah read a contract at his kitchen counter at 11 p.m. "Doing what?" "Deciding you should handle it alone before you've established it can't be handled together." Noah looked up. "I haven't said anything. You have the self-sufficient face." "I don't have a—" "You have 17 faces," Damien said, moving the contract out of his hands with the easy authority of a man who had decided a thing was settled. "I know all of them. The self-sufficient one involves this." He touched the corner of Noah's brow, gentle and precise. "And this?" The set of his jaw. "You're carrying something you haven't told me about." Noah looked at him. This close, Damien's eyes were gray and certain and wholly focused. "The hotel development," Noah said. "Planning board is asking questions about Voss Holdings' involvement. Someone's been talking." Damien was quiet for a moment. "I'll handle it." "I know you'll handle it. That's not the—" He stopped. "I don't want you to handle it by doing something I'm going to have to not know about." Damien looked at him steadily. "What do you want?" "I want to handle it together, through legitimate channels first, exhaustively, before anything else." A pause. "And if legitimate channels aren't enough? Then we talk about it. Both of us. Not you deciding unilaterally what I need to not know." Noah held his gaze. "That's what together means." It was a conversation they needed to keep having, the edges of their worlds and what they did when those edges met. Damien didn't always agree. Noah didn't always win. But they talked, which was something neither of them had historically been excellent at. The planning board situation resolved through legitimate channels, mostly, with one meeting Noah didn't attend and didn't ask about. He decided that was close enough for now. The hotel broke ground on a Wednesday in November. It was a gray day with a bite in the air, and the groundbreaking ceremony was small. Just the project team, a few board members, the requisite photographs for the press release. Afterward, the crowd dispersed, and Noah and Damien stood alone at the edge of the cordoned site. The first raw evidence of something they'd built together, marked out in stakes and caution tape against the gray sky. 2 years, Noah said. "At least," Damien agreed. Noah glanced at him. Damien was looking at the site with an expression that was almost peaceful, rare enough to notice. "You're pleased with yourself," Noah said. "I'm pleased with this." Damien looked at him, and the expression carried over, warm in a way he'd stopped hiding. "With what it is." Noah looked back at the marked ground. A building that didn't exist yet. A collaboration no one had expected. An arrangement that had started with a matte black card on a boardroom table and turned into this. Whatever this was. Everything this was. "Damien," he said. I'm glad you came back." He said it to the construction site, which was easier. "After 11 years. I'm glad you found an excuse." A pause. "It wasn't an excuse," Damien said. It was inevitability. Noah turned to look at him. You sound very certain about that. I'm always certain before I say anything. He held Noah's gaze. We were always going to end up here. I just got tired of waiting for the circumstances to arrange themselves. So you arranged them. I prefer to be prepared, Damien said, for the second time since all this began. Noah shook his head, smiling despite himself. The easy, unguarded kind that used to feel strange. You are, he said, genuinely the most impossible person I've ever met. And yet, Damien said softly, here you are. Here he was, 42 floors below his own office, on a gray November morning, standing next to the most dangerous and complicated and infuriating person he had ever known, who had spent 11 years watching his back without being asked and who kissed him like every decision he'd ever made was deliberate. Here I am, Noah agreed. Damien's hand found his brief, certain, just long enough, and then they were walking back to the cars because they both had afternoon meetings and empires that didn't stop requiring attention just because their owners had finally figured something important out. But the touch stayed the rest of the day. Chapter 8. 6 months into the hotel project, Linwood made their last move. It wasn't the company. Linwood Enterprises had quietly retreated after the failed shareholder challenge. As Damien had predicted, this was more personal. A former Linwood executive named Carter Hayes, who had apparently decided that if he couldn't take Sterling Enterprises apart professionally, he would try personally. He went to the press with a story. Sterling Enterprises CEO in bed with organized crime. Joint venture with Voss Holdings affront for criminal money laundering. The story ran on a Friday morning. By noon, Noah's stock had dropped 4 points. By 3 board members had called demanding an emergency meeting. By 5, Noah was sitting in his office with the peculiar calm of someone who has moved past panic into pure clarity. His phone rang. I know, he said. I know you know. Damien's voice was even, controlled, but underneath something tight and barely leashed. Are you all right? It was such a simple question. Noah had spent 6 years never being asked that by anyone who mattered. I'm fine, he said. What's the play? Legally first. Everything above board. Your lawyers, my lawyers. Joint statement by Monday. A pause. The joint ventures books are clean. I made sure of that. A forensic audit will confirm it. And Hayes. Silence. Damien. Hayes has a history of making accusations he can't support, Damien said carefully. That history is about to become very relevant. Through what means? Legitimate research, Damien said. His previous employer. His own financial records. All public information. Assembled correctly. Noah exhaled slowly. And if it isn't enough? A long pause. It will be enough. Damien. His voice was quiet but firm. If it isn't enough, we talk about it first. Both of us. Another pause. When Damien spoke again, something in his voice was different. Less controlled. More present. Noah, he said, I am not going to let him do this to you. I know. Noah looked at the city beyond his windows, 40 stories of everything he'd built. But how you stop him matters to me. You understand that? Yes, Damien said after a moment. I understand. Good. Noah paused. Come over tonight. We'll work through the statement together. A beat. I'll bring food. From my actual favorite place. Obviously, Damien said, and the thread of warmth underneath it undid some of the tightness in Noah's chest. The statement went out Monday morning, signed by both of them, accompanied by a preliminary audit summary that their combined legal teams had worked through the entire weekend to produce. It was thorough, clear, and left Hayes' accusations with nowhere to stand. Hayes' own history emerged through a series of very thorough investigative articles over the following week. His 3 previous accusations against former employers, all unsubstantiated, all quietly settled. The narrative shifted. It always shifted with enough truth correctly placed. Noah didn't ask exactly who had placed it. Some things, he had decided, he would learn to hold in the gray space between full knowledge and willful ignorance. It wasn't comfortable. It was honest. They were building a life at the intersection of 2 very different worlds. and that required a tolerance for complexity that neither of them had entirely figured out yet. But they were figuring it out together, which was the difference. The board meeting that followed was the most important of Noah's career. He walked in alone. Damien had offered to come, and Noah had said no, not this one was his, and sat at the head of the table and looked at the people who had built Sterling Enterprises with him and made the case for everything he was and everything he'd chosen. He spoke for 20 minutes. About the hotel development, the audit, the joint venture's genuine merit. About his own history of building things from nothing. About what Sterling Enterprises was and what it would continue to be. He did not speak about Damien personally. That was not the board's business. When he finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then his longest-serving board member, a 60-year-old woman named Ruth Cho who had backed him when he was 23 and drowning, said, "The audit is conclusive. I move we close this matter." 7 votes to 1. Noah walked out of the boardroom and into the hallway where his phone showed one unread message, sent 12 minutes ago. "How did it go?" He typed back, 7 to 1. The response came in under 10 seconds. Obviously. Noah smiled. He put his phone in his pocket and went back to work. That evening, on Damien's roof, their roof by now, it had become their roof without anyone deciding. They sat with the city below and the November air turned cold, and Noah said, "I want to tell you something." Damien looked at him, waiting, patient as weather. "I spent 6 years building Sterling Enterprises as proof," Noah said, "that I didn't need anyone, that I could do it alone, that whatever happened with my father's company, whatever I'd lost, I could replace it by myself." He paused. "I think I confused independence with refusing to be cared for. And I think—" He stopped. Started again. "I think I've spent 11 years being angry at you for leaving, when the real thing was that I was angry at myself for not asking you to stay." Damien said nothing. His eyes were very steady and very warm. "I'm not good at needing things," Noah said. "I'm working on it." "I know," Damien said quietly. "I'm watching you work on it. You're very good at it when you allow yourself." Noah looked at him. "You're annoyingly patient. I've been waiting 11 years. I have perspective. I'm not going to make it easier just because you've been patient. I know that too." Damien's mouth curved. "I don't want easier. I want—" He paused, the way he sometimes did, choosing carefully. "This, specifically, including the parts that aren't easy." Noah looked at this man, who had come back after 11 years with 3 contingency plans and his favorite restaurant memorized, who had fought a war for his company from the shadows and shown up with dinner and called at 6 in the morning and kissed him like something decided, who was complicated and dangerous and the only person who had ever made him feel both challenged and held at the same time. "I love you," Noah said, simply, clearly, without armor. The city hummed. The wind moved. Damien's face did something that had nothing to do with control, open and certain and younger, somehow, than Noah had ever seen him. "I know," Damien said softly. "I've known for a while." 11 years? Noah said dryly. "At least 8, Damien said entirely seriously. Noah shook his head. "You are the most." Damien kissed him, certain and warm and unhurried, with one hand at the side of Noah's face like something careful. When they pulled back, Noah looked at him in the cold air and the city light. "Say it back," he said. Damien looked at him for a moment. And then, for perhaps the first time in his very controlled and very deliberate life, he said the direct thing without 17 other ways around it. "I love you," he said. "I have for a long time. I will for longer." Noah sat with that, the thing that was true, offered plainly, stacked against 11 years and 60-page contracts and matte black cards and borrowed entry points and Thursday evenings and a hotel breaking ground in November. All of it adding up. All of it somehow exactly enough. "Good," Noah said, and leaned back against him, and let the city light hold them both. End. Epilogue. 2 years later. The Voss Sterling Hotel opened on a Thursday. Of course it did. The opening gala filled every floor with the city's most powerful people. The architecture praised in every publication that mattered. The project declared a landmark of collaborative development. Noah gave a speech. Damien stood in the back of the room in a dark suit and watched him with the particular quality of attention he reserved for one person. Later, when everyone was gone and the last staff member had clocked out and the hotel stood quiet and new around them, they stood in the penthouse with its wall of windows and the entire city below. "We built this," Noah said. "We did," Damien agreed. "It's good. It's excellent." A pause. "I have the site for the next one." Noah turned to look at him. "Already? I prefer to be prepared." "Of course you do." Noah shook his head. But he was smiling, the easy, unguarded kind that came naturally now. "Where?" "Waterfront. 40-story mixed use. 3-year project." 3 years. Minimum. Noah looked at him, this impossible, patient, infuriating, devoted man, and said, "Send the proposal to my lawyers." Damien's smile was slow and warm and entirely his. "Already done," he said. "Last Tuesday." Noah laughed. Damien's hand found his. The city glowed below them like something that had been waiting a long time to look like this. It had been. So had they. The end. Thank you for reading Devil in a Designer Suit. Noah and Damien wish you someone who has your favorite restaurant memorized and 3 contingency plans ready. Just in case. Tumbler glass sparkles.